exchange, to talk about it, etc. And it ended up being a beautiful experience, but something that was hostile to be started with. You know what I mean? So many different lessons, man, many life lessons from them. Many of these people are very good friends and colleagues even today. But it was an experience that, you know, it was really life on life's terms. You know what I mean? But a lot of lessons to be learned from that.
You, let's just switch gears just a little bit. The Fellowship Foundation. Tell me about the Fellowship Foundation. Like, tell me how. What is they only? Only 24.
Oh, the Bush Fellowship.
Yeah.
The Bush Fellowship. Yes. Back in 2014, I applied for and received the Bush Fellowship.
That's what it's called, the Bush Fellowship
Foundation. It's the Bush Foundation. Okay. They're here local. They're in St. Paul. Mm-hmm. But I was awarded a fellowship. It was a 2-year fellowship that essentially they look to support leaders that they feel are, you know, up and coming, people who have a lot to contribute to, you know, the society, and, you know, through a very strenuous application process, you know, I was selected to be one of 24. I think there were about 500 applicants that year, or nearly 500 applicants that year, that I was selected one of 24 for a 2-year fellowship that allowed me to really invest in myself as a leader. And because
it's a big deal though, right?
It's a big deal, huge deal. I mean, they gave us $100,000 to use over a 2-year period of time to invest in ourselves, to build our skills, to get greater capacity, to learn things. I've traveled many places. I learned, I picked up a lot of things. So it was a great, beneficial experience for me as a leader, but just be even more so just as a person, right? Their whole motto is that, it said, you know, we support ideas and the people who power them, right? So the idea said that people have an idea, they have a concept about things, they want to put things out. They've already demonstrated that they're very valuable to the work, you know, whatever it is, and they come and they help you. You know, that was a tremendous, tremendous opportunity for me, individually, as a leader, but also just as a person.
I want to talk about back in the day a little bit. I want to talk about Northside.
Yeah.
You know, you went to North High, right?
Yes.
Correct? You know, what years was you at North?
Man, I graduated in '88, so 85 to 88.
How was North back then? You know, as far as like population.
Yeah.
All of it. You know?
I mean, North Minneapolis, man. I think because again, it's a community school, right? So it's hard to talk about the school isolated from the community that we came from, right? So, you know, North Minneapolis has been seen in Minneapolis is really the place where most African Americans congregated. The small African American community would congregate, and it really grew from there. You know, we were born in Chicago. And then Dad moved us up here when we were in the 70s. So we were, you know, 6, 7, 8 years old. You know what I mean? So we grew up here. We grew up here. We became the people who we're going to be. We became who they are here, right? Who we are here. So, but North Minneapolis was always a place that we moved to, and a place that we had became, you know, very attached to. You know, we even live here still today, right? So, North High School was, you know, the school in the community that, you know, much different than how schools are today. I knew I was going to North High School when I was in 6th grade. I mean, it was always the expectation that that's my school. And when we went, there was no busing and all that. That came later on, right? So we walked to school. We walked to school every single day. That was what that was the whole thing about being in community. I think that also drove the sense of community too. You know what I mean? So my graduating class, man, we had, when we were in school, all throughout my years of school, we probably had 2,000 plus kids in school, man. We had packed classrooms. It was bananas all over the place, right? It was, when you went out for the hoop team, it wasn't 20 people trying out, man. It was a gym full of 125 people, man. It was, I mean, so they tried to kill you so you wouldn't come back the next day trying to whittle the team down. You know what I mean? But so it was a lot more, you know, population. But it was also a lot more communal love too, though. You know what I mean? So you know, the North Henry rivalry was big, was real popping back then. But when we were, but also the Minneapolis and St. Paul rivalry. So North and Central and all those big clashes and whatnot too. But these were African American based, you know, schools and programs and communities that had love for each other, but we were also our biggest, you know, opponents as well, right? So all of that really has shaped who I am, and it still shapes the work that I do today, honestly. That commitment to that community.
Is that where Get Fresh started?
Yes. Yes.
Tell us about Get Fresh.
I mean, just like everything else, man. We were young, young guys trying to build an identity for ourselves, right? We tried it, much like any other. Our story is no different than any other story in any other urban center, right? Where you have people who start to come of age. You know, we're starting to get a little older. We're starting to the world ain't necessarily fair. You know what I mean? You know that there is where we live and there's where those other people live. You know, it's differences. So we're starting to understand that. So instead of, you know, longing for what they had, we just fully embrace who we was. We just embrace who we was. So you see that, even you see that in hip hop and all that too, people will talk about where they from. They'll talk about their area and all of that, you know, and because we were conditioned to think and to believe that, you know, we're gonna make this, it may not be much to somebody else, but this is who we are. This is ours. So
it was Northside Center?
Yes, it was. It was.
High or North High or Northside?
Northside. I mean, we was a crew.
How many
of
it?
A crew. I can't really say how many of it.
I mean, was it 15? Was it 5?
It was more than 15. I'll put it that way. It was more than 15. But again, mainly what it was, no, it was probably around 15, 20 of us. But the idea of it was we were young guys who dealing with all of the, you know, it was gang violence, it was drugs, it was all kind of things there too. And, you know, we weren't immune to none of this stuff. We weren't immune to it. So the same way that we would link up together, support each other, defend each other, you know what I mean? But it was really about us trying to survive in these streets too, though, right? So a lot of this was us trying to be who we were, but also, man, we loved each other though. Even today, many of these, our lives have taken very different paths. But if I see any of my brothers today, especially those who are still alive, if I see them, it's nothing but love for each other though, because we loved each other then, and even though our lives have evolved, but we still have love for each other though.
Pedro. Was Pedro Get Fresh?
Yes.
Pedro was Get Fresh. Can you tell us about Pedro?
Pedro Ramos. Man, this brother, we went to school even before North, though. We went to school, we went to Jordan, when Jordan, not the new Jordan, but the old Jordan, right off 29th and Irvin and all over in that area, right? And from where we lived on 8th Avenue, even going to Jordan, it seemed like that was like 100 miles from home, right? Because we had to get a bus up there from 8th up to 29th, right? But we met in school, man. This guy was, you know, his family was originally from New York, so Pedro he used to put us up on. He used to go to New York in the summer, like when school was out. So he would come back, bring back all the cutting edge hip hop stuff and all that kind of stuff to us, and you know, his family had a Puerto Rican family and all that kind of stuff, and so he would bring us back and teach us about culture and all that kind of stuff. That's when we fell in love with KRS-One and all these guys, because he's from the Bronx and all that kind of stuff. So
that was like your best friend? Was that your best friend?
He was, yeah. We was all crew. Yes, we were all crew like that too. And unfortunately, man, we were rivaling. You know, you know, dust ups, you know, with gang violence and all that kind of stuff too, that when we was in school, even though at that time we were I was a basketball player, he was a football player, but we were still in school, but we were straddling the fence. Because, you know, once you're in that, it's kind of like you're trying to figure out how to navigate with that, right? And that was a situation to where these guys came to the school one day, some guys we was robbing with outside. I don't know how they got access to the school. Still don't even know to the day how they got that too. But they came in, and I was getting ready for basketball practice at one time, man, and the guys came in and they cornered us. And it being a big fight in the hallway, right? And as things materialized during this whole altercation that we had, one of the guys and Pedro was down, and he kneed him, and it started some like internal bleeding inside of him, and so he was really hurt, whatever. And subsequently, man, some days later, he was hospitalized and he died. And that was really one of the first opportunities that I had for somebody really close to me to, like, God, we sit next to one day and then he gone the next day. That I felt like forever changed right now, and his parents, his little sister, all of them, when we knew them, man, and they were hurting so much, man. And I remember one time we actually just went to his house, man, and just, after they had lost him, and we, were just trying to, comfort them and say that we'll be your sons. We'll all be your sons now. You know what I mean? And just trying to, because that was a real traumatizing situation for us to lose him the way we lost him. But it was a situation to where, it was us, again, trying to navigate this urban society, man, and where you understand that nobody is immune. Nobody is immune. So as much as we see things happening today and all that, while I don't condone it, I understand how people can get to some real dark places in themselves and do things that are really more harmful than helpful, for sure.
We got to ask you about Cliff also. We was talking about, who is Cliff to the NORTHSIDE community?
Cliff Brown?
Yes.
Oh yeah, CB. Cliff Brown. He eventually became a coach or an assistant coach when Kyler was in school. But he was one of the guys, man, who'd been around forever, man. He was one of the guys who was like a manager, but we was back in school. You know what I mean? A guy who used to, real funny guy, but he was like one of the epitome. He was the epitome of like NORTHSIDE basketball. You know what I mean? He never played for North. But he was all in and around North to where he became so synonymous with North that we all think, when we think about him and we talk about him right now, I mean, our recollection of him is being in the gym, being at the practices, was a good influence on the guys too, you know what I mean? But he was a character as well, you know what I mean? So it's a guy he's missed, man. He passed on a couple years ago. And we miss him a lot. We do miss him.
You got Al-Ma'un on your shirt.
Yes.
What does Al-Ma'un mean?
Al-Ma'un, it translates to say the neighborly needs, right? This is the program that our effort to work in the community, and we do a lot now. From my story, you can understand that I'm indebted to our community, but I also took a lot from our community too, right? And I'm not proud of that, but it's a fact, it's a reality. So part of my work and the work that I do from a religious perspective, but also from a community-based perspective, is I owe a debt to the community in which I came up in. So the work that we do, for me, is about really repaying that debt. It's about giving something back, because I took a lot. We took a lot, right? So the idea of us providing housing or providing basically like food for people, and mentoring young people, right? And employment, getting people connected to training that leads to work, so they can take care of themselves, feel good about themselves, feel good about life, Cause it ain't no fun when you sitting when you ain't got no way to make no money and life seems like it's passing you by, and people feel there. And the alternative to that is to do something that seems like it's a great idea, but it's short-lived. It's short-lived, and you only end up in two different places going the other way, right? So for us, we're saying the best thing that we could do to give back is to help people to live a better quality of life. So our work centers around that. It centers around helping people, mentoring young people, feeding people, our seniors and whatnot, those with disabilities in our communities. They're very vulnerable, very, very vulnerable. So we're here to take care of the vulnerable and do as best we can.
You guys raised a lot of money for that, though, right?
Yeah.
Around the George Floyd period. Correct?
Yes, yes.
How much did you guys raise?
It depends. There were a lot of different things that were happening to where there's a lot of influx of money coming in through COVID. COVID was a part of that too, but also through the uprisings as well. To where we were able to go from a staff of 3 to a staff of 25, right? And it happened very, very quickly, right? So, we ended up with a budget, a couple $1 million a year worth of budget, right? That we were able to do a lot, to feed a lot, but a lot of it was just for paying for people's time to go and to help them go to work and help them get back connected and help people stay safe out here from, in terms of COVID and those kinds of things, testing and everything else that we were doing was around. It was a huge undertaking, and quite frankly, it's really a matter. If we're just being honest about it, we had to grow so quickly, so fast, that our infrastructure wasn't even set up. Our systems weren't even set up to even handle that growth, right? So we've been struggling to kind of catch up to the growth. It was like one of those moments, those earth-changing moments, right? Societal changing moments, to have a pandemic and then have George Floyd be murdered, in front of the world to see, right? All of those things it created a perfect storm. So yeah, we were able to garner a lot of resources, but a lot of it it was like one-time resources. Now we got to try to sustain ourselves now, because now people are thinking like the further and further we get away from that incident and beyond the pandemic, now too, stuff going back to normal. People are not as giving anymore. So all that's gonna change the way that we have to go about our business and whatnot as well, right? So yes, we benefited from that, but it was because we were positioned to do a lot for people.
With the George Floyd, what was some of your personal feelings with that? The story, I don't know specifically, but the story about a store owner calling the police on a black man, but the store owner, we would like to assume he was Muslim. This battle and being basically you're on this side and you're on that side.
At the end of the day, we have to stand for what is right, even if it's against our own self. So when I look at, first of all, it's so many layers to this, right? Not only was that, but I was also a chaplain for the Minneapolis Police Department, right? Of which it was hard for me to push for the reform that I felt necessary in the police, I didn't work for them, but I definitely worked with them, right? So I had to step away from that work because I needed to push to change. You got to change. It can't stay the same. You got to change. And so that was one angle in on it too. And every time we saw this, 8 minutes and 40 seconds or 9 minutes and 20, whatever the number is, every time I saw it, it was very hard for me to look at that, because every time I seen him, I looked at him, I saw myself. I saw my sons. I see my brothers. I saw us. He was us. He's us, right? And it was really the epitome of, the whole, knee on the neck, which literally happened, but it's also figuratively is the pressure that it feels like you're under so much when you're here too. So all of these things together, man, gave me like a real visceral effect. It was hard to look at. It was hard to understand. It's hard to process. It was hard to talk about it, but it was hard not to talk about it. It's like, I don't want to talk about it. I need a break. But then after a while, I gotta vent. I gotta get it out, because it was tearing you up on the inside, right?
But what are those conversations like?
The conversations go from
when you sitting in front of a store owner, possibly that store owner.
Yeah.
They're all pretty much family almost, or connected in some way. So when you talking to those type of people, how was those conversations now?
Sometimes they were tenuous. They were difficult conversations. They were difficult conversations in the sense to where, because here's the situation. And you cannot simply speak about that specific issue without understanding the historical context. So when the divestment happens in black communities, what they do is, so you have big corporations that won't have a presence, so that they pull their resources from a certain area, right? So hence you get stuff like food deserts, right? It's, you got people who it's very hard for them to get, to fresh fruits and produce, and they don't have the money to do anyways, right? Many people are not mobile or whatever the case may be. So this situation, this dynamic, it created the corner store. It created the corner store epidemic almost, right? So now you got, because I can't get to the big box store, because I don't have the mobility, my money is short, whatever the case may be, now you have these go-betweens. You have these go-betweens that are smaller in nature, so they have less variety, right? And the things that they tend to have are not as good for us. And those are, you pass the stories all the time, right? So what happens is that, and because this dynamic has been created, and that we were redlined in many spaces, that means we couldn't get loans and things to do business like these other people could come into. They could come in and do it where people who were there couldn't get it done, right? So now you got another dynamic. You got people who like, I couldn't open my store. They wouldn't give me the financing, but they allow this guy to come in and do this as well, right? And now because I don't got the mobility, I'm forced to go and shop with a guy to get my milk or my bread or whatever the case may be, because for me to go way over to Robbinsdale, I ain't got no car. I mean, so and it's not feasible, right? So they created this systemic racism, created enemies and people who have animosity with each other. And there were those who took advantage of it too, because they can't set these same stores up. You can't go any dine and see them, so you're not gonna see them over there. You're not gonna see, so it was a prey on the hood is what it was, right? So now you create this dynamic, and now you got these guys coming over here looking for a better life, coming from bad situations, looking for something else too, but they end up setting up shop in the hood. So it's an opportunity that was born out of a systemic situation that where it was like, again, a perfect storm. Many of these folks.
But isn't that un-Islamic?
It is. It is.
From the Arab point
standpoint? It is. So again, and listen. The standards that we have in Islam is like this. I don't serve no food that I won't eat. I don't provide no housing where I won't live. I won't put nothing out that I won't engage in myself. If I'm doing something and I'm saying I ain't eating that's for them people over, then I shouldn't be doing it, right? If we ain't supposed to, engage in drugs, alcohol, all these kind of things as well, but we making it available and real easy to underage and all this other kind of stuff, right? These are situations, man, that are un-Islamic in my perspective. This is simply a situation of people preying on poor people, preying on people who are not under-resourced, and they preying on that, right? So how was the conversation go? The conversations was about that. The conversation was about, it was okay when these guys set up outside your shop and sell what they want to sell, as long as they're doing business with you. But as soon as somebody don't do something, you weaponize their skin color by calling the police on them as well too, right? That's a part of what took place. That's a part of what took place. And people don't like to hear it, but so what? We had to bring the story to it, and anybody listen.
So basically, when it's convenient.
When it's convenient.
Because you don't call the police when they sitting outside your store.
Exactly.
25 deep.
Exactly.
You don't call them then.
Exactly. Especially when you're also engaged with some underground economy stuff yourself, and they're fueling it. They're fueling it, right? So listen, man. Systemic racism, institutional racism create underground economies. It creates underground economies. So it's like, okay, I can't play above board, then I'm gonna play under the table, right? So hence you got stuff like people selling Lucy's and all that kind of stuff too, right? Yeah. That's underground economy. That's underground economy, right? You got people they sell food stamps and all that that's underground economy, because people can't find a way. They can't find a way, and this is what they got, so now they're bartering to make things happen, right? So this ain't nothing new. But the point is this, is that it's hypocritical because they turned a blind eye to it when it benefited them. But when they felt like they were being wronged in some way, then they put the full brunt of the system to come. And in this particular case, like in other cases, like with Eric Garner and other people, George Floyd the first one to be killed like this. We saw that. But they brought the full force of the systemic racism, you know, to operate on their behalf at the expense of a brother who looked like me and you, right? So I don't care under the auspice of whoever you are, whatever faith, religion, tradition, or whatever the case may be, it makes it worse in my eyes because of that. It makes it worse, right? And they heard it. They heard it. Even when people were, you know, asking about different things that was going on, about racist stuff that was saying that about Muslims and all that, you know, people, they want to come hear what we got to say about
That's
it.
what I was going to ask you about. I was going to ask you about Holy Land.
Yeah.
Holy Land, their daughter came out with some racial slurs.
Yeah, all these kind of things, all these things, man. And there's situations to where this was an eye-opening, a reckoning for a lot of people in a lot of spaces, right? And, you know, the situation is such to where, you know, there wasn't no cover for that. There wasn't no cover for that. You know, when things happen and people were under pressure, then they wanted to tap into us to give support to those kind of things. And I'm saying, listen, I'm not about
when you say tap in, that means they reaching out to you.
They want to use our social capital to provide cover for what took place. Okay, so our reputation, people who they know us, they know my name, know our family, all these kind of things. They want to use that kind of situation, and I'm saying no. I'm saying no. If we want, if you're sincere about doing this, then there's some steps that need to be taken here. There's some things that got to be done. I'm not about no dog and pony show. I'm not going to say everything is cool when things are not. I'm not going to do that, right? So we work with them, and they've made some progress, but not at the rate or the speed that I'll be more comfortable with. You know what I mean? But I think these situations, man, have shown to where we still have a long way to go, even among our Muslim community. We got a long way to go. And it's a lot of things that need to still happen. And, you know, for us to think that race doesn't matter, that the socioeconomic status doesn't matter, we're just being naive. We're being naive. So at the end of the day, I show up, I'm a Muslim, but I'm also African, I'm a black man. I'm a black man. So those identities, especially in this racialized society we're into, you can't separate that. You can't separate that. Again, people will identify me more by my race than my religion until they understand who I am, what my name is, what work I do, and so on and so forth. So we still carry that with us, still do.
I think we might have been the first, well, you know what, I ain't gonna say first, but some of the first entrepreneurs in North Minneapolis.
I don't know. I mean, North Minneapolis got a long history of entrepreneurs now.
Well, our storefront, the fish wagon.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember a couple people, but it seems like it's a lot now. I don't remember if it's 50 now. I feel like back then it was 10.
Yeah.
You know.
I put it this way. I'll say this. I think that there was places like, you know, like the Wingman and other people, right? They used to have little corner store, little shops like that as well. Even people like before, like Twin Cities Fish and Seafood, where we took over from. We took over the spot right where we are on Penn and Rush Broadway. But what I will say is about my father, your grandfather, Charles EL-AMIN. He was a person who was definitely an entrepreneur, and he was ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time. I can remember him going through the city, the state, everybody trying to get licensed to set up a food truck on the street. And this is before food trucks was even a thing.
That's what I'm saying.
But we came from Chicago, where it's a food truck on every block. Yeah. So him coming from this orientation, and his twin brother down there, that was his business. So he's down there like, look, we want to try to establish this here, and he had such a hard time, such a hard time. Let me tell you how we even went into business with the fish house. This was a strategy of his. His strategy is, they said to us and convinced us at that time that he says, okay, if we can't get into, if we can't have a truck on the street, then I want to get into the state fair. I want to get into the fair, right? They had a thing there that they said, you can't get into the state fair unless you have a brick and mortar restaurant. You got to have a place, right? So he says, okay, all right. So we looked around, we got to looking, and we found a place that we eventually bought. And one thing that he was, in terms of his vision for this, and it's helping us now, is that he said, we can't buy only the business. We got to buy the property and the business. If something happens to our business, we'll still have our property, and this will be part of our legacy for years and years to come. This is what he said 25 years ago, right? So we did that. We didn't negotiate just for the business. Somebody owned the business, somebody else owned the property. We brought them all to the table and said, we'll do the deal, but we got to have everything, all chips in, right? And we got it. We got it. So even the fact that our business hasn't been in business for several years now, we still own the real estate, right? But my point is that the vision that he had was ahead of the game in the sense, or ahead of his time, is because he was trying to push concepts that today people would snap them up today. You know, so even when we drive by, we see food trucks and whatnot, it's like one of those things where you always think about back then, and him trying to go through all and being told no, you had, or giving you some little provision here or there. You can only do it for 14 days here, only do a festival here. You can only do this, but you can't be out on the streets the way, that kind of thing. And sometimes he accepted it, sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he still set up until they made us close it down, right? Just trying to push the envelope. So I would say, man, for people who got a vision, who got a dream, you know, sometimes, you know, you might be ahead of your time. Sometimes you might be the one who opened the doors to people. I would say everybody in Minneapolis, you know, who has food trucks right now really owe a little bit of a debt to a guy named Charles EL-AMIN, who they might not even know. Yeah. But he was going to the back with the city, with the mayor, with the, you know, and trying to do those kinds of things. So from that perspective, he was definitely a trailblazer. From that perspective.
What did he had a special recipe?
Yes.
For the fish batter.
Yes.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's going on with that?
I mean, we still have it. We still have it.
You know the recipe?
I do.
What's the recipe?
I can't tell you what the recipe is. If I tell you, we gotta, you know, it's a situation. So, but yes, we do.
I mean, the question I get I'm outside, somebody hit me up, man, what y'all doing with the fish house? What's going on with that? What's going on with that?
Yeah.
So I need that question answered clearly so I can just post this clip and be done with it.
Yeah. So we are working on a development project that, I'll say it this way. It'll be a retail development project on that space that will honor the legacy of our father. So it's not for sale. We're not selling. You know, and if anything, you know, it'll be a situation where we'll partner in business or something. But that name, that property, that whatever that development is, God willing, will carry the EL-AMIN legacy, Charles EL-AMIN's legacy into the future.
Beautiful. The House of Peace.
Yeah.
The House of Peace. Tell us about the House of Peace. I mean, you told us a little bit, you know, housing, but I guess where it is, you know, who it supports, and type of people that.
We got a couple projects. The House of Peace is one of them, where we're really helping brothers who coming home from incarceration, some reentry kind of things, and really wrapping services around them. We have a new facility as well, a second one now that we're bringing online, really about wrapping our arms around, you know, many of these brothers. And then we'll have one that's going to be dedicated to women too soon, right? But it's really about helping people to get stable, helping people to get back on their feet after they've, been away or experienced some homelessness or, whether it's treatment or some other institution, incarceration, whatever the case may be. Our whole concept about housing is called second chance housing, right? It's the idea of us, building a situation where people can have a pathway back, and do it in a way that is something that's done for people who look like them, and many of us who've experienced some of the same barriers that they've actually going through as well. So the House of Peace is just one of our latest projects that way.
But I forgot to ask, EL-AMIN, what does the name mean? Where did it come from?
Yes.
Like, because we wasn't always EL-AMIN.
Yes, that's right. So EL-AMIN is, now, part of our growth in Islam is when we changed our names. I was born Mark Dawson. That was my name when I was born on my birth certificate, right? And when we began to, grow in our religion, one of the principles was having names that had good meanings. Right? So fast forward to the question, EL-AMIN. EL-AMIN means one who is worthy of trust. It means the trustworthy one, right? It was one of the names of, or the nicknames of the Prophet, peace be upon him. They used to call him EL-AMIN because he was the one who was known to be trustworthy. He was one to where people could leave their goods, leave their money, leave their wealth with him, and he would protect it. He would protect it, and when they came back, they would find it in the same shape, or he would have improved it in some way, right? He was known to be that way. So even the people who were opposing him, they couldn't lie on him and say that he wasn't trustworthy because his reputation had preceded himself, right? That idea, that concept is something that my father, your grandfather, and grandmother wanted for us. They wanted that for us. So I can remember still being in second grade or something, right? And going down to the courts and having our name officially changed to MAKRAM EL-AMIN versus Mark Dawson.
Was you mad?
You know what? I didn't fully understand the significance of it.
That's like, dang, you changing my name?
Yeah.
I had, how old was you?
I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, something like that.
I had 7 years of this.
Yeah. I mean, and really, quite frankly, people still call me Mark all the way through high school, right? And I think that, but now that I understand my name,
So
now that I understand my meaning,
not MAKRAM.
not MAKRAM.
It changed to MAKRAM.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
But, so it was a situation to where understanding the principles of what it means to have a name with good meaning, then even as I got older, I didn't want to be called Mark anymore because I know that MAKRAM is the one who is generous and noble, basically, right? And EL-AMIN is the one who's trusted. So that means that every time I hear my name, every time I say my name, I'm reminded of what I got to be. I'm reminded of what I'm supposed to be. It's like having, it's like having a label, on a can. And you open the can, you expect that what's inside the can matches what's on the label, right? And you'll be very disappointed if you looked inside the can and it was corn, but it said green beans on the outside. You're like, something's wrong here, right? So from that analogy perspective, we try to make our content on the inside with our label. And that's what our names are, is our label, our identities.
So it wasn't just you?
No, my whole family. Our whole family, man. So we had
y'all all changed your first and last names?
We all changed. No. So my mother, we all have the same middle name. Everybody has the same middle name, the same middle name, right? One who's a favored, a blessed or favored, right? So, but we all took, as children, they replaced our first names with Muslim names, right? And then our last name with Muslim names. So we had a complete identity. But my mother and father, they kept their first and their last name. They kept their first names, but changed their middle and last name.
If you had to put together a Minnesota hoop basketball Mount Rushmore. 4 people.
4 people?
4 people on Minnesota Mount Rushmore. What would that look like?
I would say just Minnesota, not North. You saying right?
Just Minnesota.
Just Minnesota. Okay, all right. So I mean, obviously, I'm gonna say Khaled. You know, I think. I mean, you got it. You can't argue with. If we're gonna say Minnesota, you can't argue with a dude like Kevin McHale either, though, right? You look at even some of the young guys now. You know what I mean? You got to look at. I mean, so they're guys who never really made it like other guys did. You know what I mean? Guys we know about but never really made it. I mean, but it's really hard for me to do it. I got to have a little bit more criterion about it. You know what I mean? I mean, you got people like Ronnie Bull and Ricky Hicks. You got people like that. You got the you know, Doug Carter and Brett McNeil and all these guys, right? You got even, you know, the Jones brothers now, Tyus and all these. I mean, what they're doing now, right? But I think that, you know, but we got all these, even these young guys. So it's really, really hard for me to say that. This is what I will say, though, and I know that the answer you want, but I would say that that it's so much good hoop now that we watch high school kids now here that go on to be superstars. You know what I mean? Chet Holmgren, arguably the top pick in the NBA draft. You know what I mean? Suggs and all them last year, and all these guys too, right? So it's a different era right now. It's a real different era, and I think that it's.
You gave me 2 though. You gave me 2.
Yeah.
It's 2 more.
Yeah. Wow, that's good.
It's 2 more.
That'll be the next episode. Tune in for the next episode. I bring the other 2.
NBA. Let's go to NBA right now. We got Memphis and Golden State. I want you to tell me your picks, and you can give me a little bit how you feel about their stars, you know.
I really like I like the grit of the Grizzlies. I like the grit of the Grizzlies right now.
You like them over Golden State?
I'm saying, I mean, I like how they playing. I think eventually, I think that series will go 7. And just because Steph is who he is and they got, you know, and the way they shoot that ball and all of that, I think that they might edge them. You know what I mean? So I would probably still nod towards Golden State right now for that. I mean, I think Philly's in trouble with Miami right now.
What's up with James Harden?
James Harden is not.
I feel like I could guard him right now. I feel like I could guard him. I can.
I think he'd love to see you coming now. He'd love to see you coming. And when he's been struggling, he'll love to see you coming. But I think that, I mean, he's not the player that he has been. And for whatever reason, I don't know. I mean, he ain't that old to be, you know what I mean? But so, I mean, in terms of basketball-wise, he still should be playing in his prime right now. But
Suns in Dallas.
Man, I think that's a great series, man. I think that, you know, I like CP3, man, one of the all-time best point guards. I mean, this guy carried that team, and a couple games ago didn't miss from the floor, right? I mean, that's like that's crazy to play that well on that stage at that level is amazing. I like Luka, you know, but sometimes, as amazing as he is, his players, that they watch him play, and I think that might catch up with them as the series goes on. I'm not saying they're gonna win again, but I favor the Suns there.
Celtics Bucks.
You know what? You know, I like the Bucks, but man, Boston's defense is amazing. It's amazing. And because of Chris Middleton, you know, if he can't make his way back, I think Boston will get that series. Actually, I think they'll get it. But I love Giannis. Giannis is the MVP. He's the best player in the league right now. Mm-hmm. But stop playing. He's the best. People can do things better than him, but he dominates the night in, night out.
He might have been right about Harden. He's been telling us about Harden. Yeah,
you know, maybe so. But But yeah, I think that Giannis is the best player in the league, for sure.
You're the Timberwolves GM. We've had a fairly good season.
Mm-hmm.
Made it to the playoffs. What changes are you making? Who's on the chopping block? Who can go? Who we need to keep? What we need to do next year to get past the first round?
You know what? I think I need another year together. I wouldn't tinker with the roster too much. I would. What they're going to need to me is they're going to need another defensive big presence, though, a rim protector. You know, Cat's not that. He's not that.
You keep Cat?
Yes, I keep him.
You keep D'Lo?
Because we can't get. I mean, I don't know who you get in this.
Did you? I don't know how true and how possible, but there was something on the internet proposing D'Lo and Westbrook. Not a straight up trade. There was definitely more pieces to it. But how do you feel about that?
So I mean, you know, I don't know. I honestly don't know about that. I think that he could be a good piece for us, but the orientation of the team has to change, right? This is Anthony Edwards' team now, and everybody got to get okay with that. This is his team. This dude can carry us for places that, you know, people. It got to be his team. And Cat and everybody else is second and then on down, right? I like our team. I think we're deep. I do think we got to make a move because I think we got to get somebody, you know, a stud in the middle who can rebound that basketball and just be more of a rim protector too. Because it seems like people could just still get to the rack too easy on us, man. You know what I mean? So, and Cat fouls too much. He fouls too much to be too big. He's so big, but he fouls too much to carry that much of our offensive load. You know what I'm saying? So
the Edwards team or the Beverly's team?
I think it's Edwards' team. It's Edwards' team, period. Period. And
then Beverly's next? You ain't gonna show no respect to Beverly?
I'm gonna show respect to him. I mean, but Beverly's that glue guy, man. He's that glue guy, right? His as crazy as much as I hated him before he came to us.
Loved him.
I love him now because he gives us a toughness that we couldn't have had.
Especially when we play against good guards.
Yeah.
Like Ja,
yeah.
I feel like we get that 47 piece he had another night. I feel like we get a couple of those.
Yeah.
Without.
No, listen, and Ja Morant is just like on the next level of that next wave of the superstars in this league, man. I mean, we lost to a dude who is that dude. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it ain't like he was a bum and we just let him get. No. We lost to the dude who was that dude, even though I felt that we settled too much down the stretch with them jump shots and everything else, too, where Anthony Edwards got to just put us on his back, man, get to the rack, because he can get in and finish left. He got to be taking them shots. And he got to get bold enough to, like, this is my team. It's my team. So.
All right, well, yeah, we could wrap this up, but one other thing they got to thank Charles EL-AMIN for is getting him to school.
Oh, yeah.
He's the bus driver for the flight.
Hey, man, I heard so many dudes who would tell you, man, that Dad must have drove everybody to school, to practice, to a game at one point in the time, man. This guy he's known as the bus driver. He's the bus driver, man. So yeah, man, his impact was felt. And that was really one of the things, honestly, if anything, that stuck with me is he made a difference. He made a difference in the lives of people, right? So he made it such to where he was, that's why we miss him so much. And it's not just because of what he meant to us. We all knew growing up that Charles EL-AMIN didn't just belong to us, that he belonged to many people. He wore many hats, and he benefited many people, right? Brothers who in and out of prison, people from the Muslim community, you know, just young people who he always had an encouraging thing to say, that sort of thing. So I think that even when he passed on, man, the people who came out to pay their respects and people who still do, I think that was just a genuine reflection of who he was as a person, you know. So So yeah, man, yeah, but yeah, he's the bus driver.
We can wrap this up. I don't know if you want to last any remarks, let them know.
Nah, man, I just want to congratulate you and this platform you created, and really encourage you to keep going, man, to use your voice, man, to use your influence, to help change the game, change the narrative, man, and just keep pushing, man. I think this is the reason I came on here, not just because it is you. I came on is because of what this represents and what this could also be. So I just want to encourage you to keep pushing, man. But congratulations on the platform.
Appreciate it. Ramadan Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak. It's good.